The year is 1989. A middle-aged man by the name of Richard Mallory ran an electronics shop in Clearwater, Florida. The business was doing relatively well. Mallory would typically hire employees just long enough to clear his backlog of repairs before letting them go. He was somewhat flighty, somewhat unpredictable. He liked to drink and he liked women. And as a result, he would often close his shop for a few days at a time and disappear, only to return a short time later and reopen the shop. So in December of 1989, when Richard Mallory went missing for a few days, not too many people batted an eye. Just Mallory being Mallory, most likely off with some girl, or at the bottom of a bottle. In addition, Mallory didn't necessarily have close family keeping track of his whereabouts. So days went by and still there was no cause for alarm. Until the chilling discovery caused some folks in Clearwater to wonder if maybe something bad had happened to Richard Mallory. The discovery that was made, the one that caused some to believe that something untoward had happened to Mr. Mallory, was his car, abandoned on a road a little ways outside of Daytona. While the car itself was somewhat of a disturbing find, what was even more mysterious was that there was no sign of Mallory anywhere near the car. In fact, there was no sign of Mallory anywhere, until a few days later. On December 13th, two men were looking for scrap metal along a dirt road near Interstate 95 in Volusia County when they spotted something that wasn't metal at all. It appeared to be something wrapped in carpet. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that it was a dead body, wrapped in a carpet and left on the side of the road. Investigators were called in, and despite the body being in bad condition and severely decomposed, they were able to lift fingerprints from the deceased, confirming what some already suspected. The body was of Richard Mallory. Even more curious was what the pathologist recorded as his cause of death: 3 shots from a .22 caliber gun. Investigators were quick to find any shady connections that Mallory may have had in his personal life, and there were quite a few. However, after a thorough enough investigation, the case went cold. Mallory's killer was in the wind. A few months later, in May of 1990, another grisly discovery was found near Brooks County, Georgia, just across the state line from Florida. Another body, deceased, male, and naked, with 2 .22 caliber slugs found in the remains. Police were unable to identify the body. However, less than a month later, in the woods in Citrus County on June 1st, 1990, yet another body was found, male, naked, and shot with the same caliber gun as the other bodies. Police were quick to accuse the surveyor who found the body of committing the murder, as he carried a gun and came across as quite defensive. The identification of the body as David Spears quickly cleared the surveyor, as he had an alibi that was far away from the location where David Spears was last seen alive. Shortly after, as was the case of Richard Mallory, they found Spears' truck on Interstate 75 with the doors unlocked and the license plate missing. And as if things couldn't get any more deadly, 30 miles south of Spears' body, another body was found. This time shot 9 times with a .22 caliber gun. With these murders happening so close together as far as location and time frame, investigators from the varying counties began communicating with each other and sharing information. Perhaps there was a connection to all of these bodies. They would just have to figure out what the link was before yet another body appeared. Eileen Warnos had a difficult childhood. She was born in 1956 and grew up without her biological father. He was incarcerated at the time of her birth. And the man who her mother married, her stepfather, Leo Dale Pittman, was later discovered to be sexually abusing her, and he himself was sentenced to prison, where he later killed himself by hanging in 1969. When Eileen was barely 4, her mother had abandoned her and her brother and fled, leaving her with her grandparents, Laurie and Britta Wournos, who were alcoholics themselves and did not prove to be the paternal figures that a child would need. By the age of 11, Eileen was doing sexual favors in school, sexual favors for her brother, was being abused by her grandfather, and even became pregnant by the age of 14 by one of her grandfather's friends. A year later, at the age of 15, Eileen's grandfather threw her out of the house, where she began living in the woods and engaging in prostitution in order to support herself financially. July 4th, 1990, in Orange Springs, Florida. Rhonda Bailey is sitting on her porch enjoying the outdoors and watching the goings-on of the road and the woods from across her home, when all of a sudden a car speeds off State Route 315 and flies into some brush across the street. As Rhonda looks on in disbelief, she sees 2 women exit the car, a brown-haired woman and a blonde, who appeared to sustain an arm injury from the crash. She noted them throwing what appeared to be beer cans into the woods and arguing. After a few minutes of this, the 2 women attempted to get back into the car and drive away, but the car was too far gone. They instead abandoned it and just began walking down the road. Rhonda then called the police, and they arrived shortly after to investigate. The car was a 1988 Pontiac Sunbird, the same car as belonged to a man who had been reported missing a little while ago, Peter Sims. What was more is there appeared to be bloodstains in the car. It wasn't clear at this point if it was from injuries from the car accident or perhaps a vicious attack or murder. The officer who was investigating the disappearance of Peter Sims quickly got the descriptions of the 2 women out to various stations in various counties, hoping that someone would come forward saying they were spotted. However, in his mind, the likelihood of finding Peter Sims alive was shrinking rapidly. Now on her own, Eileen Wournos slowly began getting more and more involved in crimes. By the age of 18, she had a DUI. She became involved in armed robberies. She tried to pass bad checks at banks. She stole cars. She was involved in identity fraud. It appeared that Eileen Wournos' life was certainly spiraling out of control. She was married and then not married. And then eventually, Wournos met Tyria Moore, a hotel maid at a Daytona Beach lesbian bar. They soon moved in together, and Eileen began supporting them with what she earned as a prostitute. Her life of crime never left her, though, and it wasn't long before she adopted a new activity which was much deadlier than anything she had done before. Troy Burris was a Gilchrist sausage delivery driver who was supposed to be following his delivery route on the morning of July 30th, the same month that Rhonda Bailey spotted the car accident that led police to Peter Sims' car. Troy Burris typically didn't dawdle when doing his deliveries, which made his manager suspicious when Burris hadn't shown up for his last 2 stops of the day. He contacted Burris's wife, who also hadn't seen him since that morning. She left the house and began searching for him, which ended up with her calling the police and reporting him missing at 2 a.m. the following morning after she failed to locate him. 2 hours later, at 4 a.m., Marion County Sheriff's deputies found his truck, abandoned off State Route 19. The doors were unlocked and the keys were missing. There were no signs of Burris. Until 5 days later. A family who was out having a picnic in the Ocala National Forest found the body of Troy Burris just off Highway 19, about 8 miles from his truck. The heat and humidity had sped up the decomposition of the body, but his wife was able to identify him by his wedding ring. He had been shot twice with a .22 caliber gun. For Eileen Warnos, it was a simple enough ruse. Flag down a car, making up some story about how she had to get to one town or another, asking the passerby if she could get a lift. Sometimes they would say yes and allow her in the car. Other times they were more apprehensive, in which case she would offer sexual favors in turn for a ride. Regardless, once she was in the car, their fate was sealed. She would shoot them with her .22 caliber gun, rob them of their belongings, ditch the car, and hide the body. She would then return to her partner, Tyria Moore. Between a period of just 12 months, Wournos murdered 7 men. It wasn't long before the evidence they pulled from Peter Sims' car along with the description of the 2 women proved fruitful. Aileen Wournos had had her run-ins with the law in Florida before. Her fingerprints were on file and matched those found at Peter Sims' car. In January of 1991, Aileen Wournos was arrested for an outstanding warrant. Simultaneously, police also arrested her partner, Tyria Moore, and made a deal with her for immunity if she managed to get a confession from Wournos. Tyria accepted. 3 days later, Aileen Wournos confessed to the murders, and on March 31st, 1992, Wournos pleaded no contest to the murders of Humphreys, Burris, and Spears. She also confessed to the murder of Richard Mallory, but stated that she killed him in self-defense as he was trying to assault her. It is still unclear if this claim is true or a fabrication. On May 15, 1992, Aileen Wournos' total sentencing was 4 death sentences for the murders she had committed, which was later upped to 6 death sentences after she confessed to the murders of Charles Edmund Carskadden and Walter Gino Antonio. Wournos told conflicting stories surrounding the murders throughout her time in incarceration. Towards the end, she took back the claims that some of the men tried to sexually assault her, stating that her motive in the murders was to leave no witnesses behind for her robberies. However, in a candid conversation she had with an interviewer and filmmaker that she didn't know was recorded, she said that it was self-defense, and that she simply didn't want to be on death row anymore and wished to die. In her own words, in a document to dismiss her legal counsel and terminate all pending appeals, she wrote, "I killed those men, robbed them cold as ice, and I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I am so sick of hearing this "she's crazy" stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm the one who seriously hates human life and would kill again. Due to the time in between her killings, as well as the different locales they were committed and the similar MO used throughout, many criminal psychologists and analysts would name Aileen Wournos as the first female serial killer. Aileen Wournos was executed on October 9, 2002, and died at 9:47 a.m. The end of a tragic life of hatred, abuse, and violence, which was unfortunately forced upon her since the moment she was born.